Hi, everyone. My name is Vivien Sharon. I'm a real estate broker with Sotheby's International Realty Canada in Toronto, and I'm very excited to welcome you today to my new series, Coffee with Vivien Live. So, got my coffee ready and ready to start. So today's episode is called Helping Seniors Live Their Best Life. The Canadian population is aging, and in 9 years, the youngest boomers will be 65, presenting a socioeconomic and demographic challenge relating to the care for these seniors. So in today's episode, Coffee with Vivien Live, I'm very excited to have two very special guests here today. But before I introduce them, let me tell you a little bit more about this series. In previous episodes, I interviewed Melissa Houston, a financial expert and writer for Forbes.com. On the last show, we discussed modern marriage with a team of family lawyers and a divorce financial expert. So today, we have Esther Goldstein and Paul Cutajar of Senior Care Access, who will talk about the challenges that seniors face with regard to housing, healthcare, and basic support needs facing this demographic. In my book, which is called The Boomer's 7-Step Guide to Downsizing, I cover many topics related to boomers and seniors in real estate. And I encourage you to go to my website, viviensharon.com/book, where you can download this book for free and find many tips and strategies to help adult children and their senior parents navigate through the emotions of downsizing. So now I'd like to introduce my guests. Esther Goldstein is a social worker with many years of experience in hospital work. She started a business over 20 years ago after recognizing that the private sector did not have a place to let people know about their services and housing. She created Senioropolis, a website and a book to give information to seniors and their families. A few years ago, she decided to take it one step further and joined forces with Paul Cutajar to create seniorcareaccess.com, a one-stop shop for all things senior. Hi, Esther.
Hi, Vivien. Thanks for having us today.
Oh, great to see you. And now I'm going to introduce my second guest, Paul Cutajar. Paul started as a realtor and experienced a very challenging circumstance managing his father's illness and his eventual passing. Paul became an accredited senior agent in order to assist other families facing transitions and challenges. He became a master ASA and started Pivotal Aging Innovations. Paul became the distributor and owner of the Ashby Method and the RAFT program, and also acquired the program that got him started, the ASA Accredited Senior Agent. He became a certified executive advisor and partnered with Esther from Senioropolis to develop and deliver Canada's largest senior housing database, supported with consulting and senior services marketing platforms. Welcome, Paul and Esther.
Hello, ladies.
Great to see you. Let's smile for a photo op that we're going to take. Okay, and now I welcome all of you, and we have our coffee, and we're ready to go. You have your drinks ready?
Ready to go.
Okay, fantastic. So we're going to cover some questions here that everybody wants to hear about: challenges that face seniors, resources for families, and working with seniors. So I'm going to jump in now with a number of questions on this topic. So I'm going to start with Esther, ladies first. Why did you create this website, Senior Care Access?
It became evident to me after years of doing Senioropolis, which was specifically focused on paid advertising. That's how it was created. What was missing was so much of the story. So a lot of people, any of the resources out there tend to be only highlighting services that pay to be there. And when you're looking for services for a client, for a senior, you miss a big piece of the picture if you don't know anything about the other pieces that are missing, the other homes that are out there, the other resources that are out there, beyond the ones that are willing to pay, or beyond the public sector. So I set out to create something no one's done before. This is the first of its kind. And really, it's been a challenge to create because we're having to change people's mindsets of the kind of website this is. It's not only about the paying people on there, it's about everything.
Mm-hmm. Great. So Paul, can you elaborate a little bit on that, why you personally got involved in this?
Absolutely. So I'm not sure if we have that much time for me to get into my personal story as to why I started working with seniors, but you did mention a little bit about my father's challenges, health challenges. And when I was going through that experience with my father, his passing, my mother, what we were going to do afterwards, it was extremely challenging as a middle-aged man, probably a little bit younger than that at the time, with a young family, forced into this environment that was completely unfamiliar to me. And I was very challenged in finding resources, people that I could count on for advice, locating other supports, and trying to make the best decision for not only my mother, but also for the rest of the family. And that's what really launched me into starting to work with seniors. Fast forward a couple of years back, Esther and I were able to meet up, fortunately. And we looked at the things that she was doing and the things that I was doing as a consultant with seniors in the real estate industry. And we said, there's a tremendous amount of information that's missing for Canadian families and seniors. Mm-hmm. And we should get together to actually develop something that is non-existent at the time. Mm-hmm. And to Esther's point, it's tough being a pioneer and getting people to change, generations of information as to what it means to be a senior and aging and how you access services and care. So it's been a fun ride, definitely.
No, it's been quite the project. Yeah. And an ongoing one as well. Now, I think it's really important to note that it's a Canadian platform, and you 100%. You have resources, and we're going to get more into the platform, seniorcareaccess.com. So could you explain what kind of information do you have on the site? And I'm going to ask Paul to start and then Esther to follow.
Perfect. So continuing on that that conversation, when we developed, or when we looked at developing the website, there were three problems or concerns that we were facing every time we were consulting with a family and that of a senior. And the first problem, or the first challenge, was when families were looking for housing solutions, where were they looking and what kind of results were they looking at? And the immediate, which I didn't know at the beginning, but when in talking with Esther, it became immediate information, was the fact that any directory that was currently out there only showed or marketed the retirement homes that paid to be seen. And once Esther explained that to me, I said, well, I'm missing a ton of information from all the other resources that are not paying to be seen, which could be a benefit for my senior client, because the more information we can give to a client, the better they can make a decision on. So that was the first thing, was where are people looking for housing solutions and what kind of information were they getting? The second part of that was families are very, very challenged when they're faced with a transitioning circumstance. And everybody is going to go through this at one point or another. And when families or a senior were faced with that transition situation, where do they start their journey of discovery, right? And then we looked at in more in depth of what that was. And the two questions were, what do we do next? And who can help us? Okay. So that leads us to the third point of where do we find resources that can help families? Okay. So those are the three challenges, and the website offers to deliver that. And we do that in a very simple way, in that the resource for housing is an unbiased database. We are the only ones that currently house close to 6,000 results in our database across Canada. We also developed a consulting program to help families in addressing those initial questions of what do we do next and who can help us. And then we're in the process of developing a Canada-wide network directory of service providers. So that's really the basis of the website, is to deliver those three challenges to Canadian families.
Esther, what kind of accommodation or housing is mentioned on your website for families that are facing crises with their mother or elderly father, and let's say they live in a major center in Canada? I'm just throwing out. I'm in Toronto, but let's say Toronto or in other provinces. Could you give us some examples of what is there out there as far as housing solutions for their parents?
So we've gone beyond just retirement homes, which tends to be what most websites have. Our goal is to have every kind of housing opportunity there is on the site. So we're working our way across the country, but we do have, for some provinces already, a complete set of data of retirement, long-term care, assisted living, memory care, seniors apartments, supportive housing, life lease, cooperative housing, palliative care, and shared housing opportunities, senior co-housing. Did I say life lease?
Yeah.
Life lease. There's probably about a dozen.
Yes.
The challenge is every province does things a little bit differently. So as we add provinces, we go through a little bit of a learning curve to understand what levels of care they offer and what they call it, because we all call things different. Every province does things differently when it comes to senior housing. Yeah. So it's very exciting because I love data, and I come from this background in how much data can I get. And so we've been building that, and we hope by the time we're done, and you're never really done, but we hope to have about 10,000 entries in the website when we're finished.
Esther, do you cover every province?
Yes, but we're gradually adding the information to every province. So Ontario is done. We've now moved out west. We're constantly putting in information for Alberta and BC. Once we're done Alberta and BC, we'll be moving out east. But right now we have every province on for retirement. So retirement's done for everyone. And now we're adding the other levels of care.
So Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Quebec, and the other provinces that you didn't mention, you've covered them for some of the basics already.
We right now have retirement for them, and we'll be adding all the other levels. Now, in most of the provinces, I mean, Ontario is one of the biggest, right? So most of the provinces do not have as much as we have in Ontario, nor do they have as many levels of care. So once we complete Alberta and BC, most of the eastern provinces will be quite quick to add on, simply because there's less information. There's less housing opportunities. And we'll probably end with Quebec. Right now we have, I think, over 1,800 entries for Quebec, but those are primarily the retirement sector.
Really, really amazing what you have in these few short years put together as a database and a resource. Now, by the way, if people have any questions that we can address toward the end or once before the end, please put them in the chat. That would be great. I think it's incredible what you're doing. And I guess the question is, how do people access it? You've got all this information. And let's say I was in the situation where I had to deal with issues with my mother. And right now she's great and she's in her own condo and she's probably listening to this show right now.
Hi, Mom.
She's my best advocate. Anyhow, just an example. If something's happened and mentally, emotionally, physically, and things need to change, which hopefully they won't. But if they do, and as an example for your clientele, what happens next? Like I've been in your website and I see that you have to pay $99 versus $199 to access certain information. So what would be my first step, Paul, to do that if I feel my mother and I need to figure out what do I do next, for example?
Right. So I think that was a perfect segue and follow up to why we have the consulting program is most people don't think about what has to happen next until you're thrown into the situation. So just to what you said, here's my situation. What do I do next? We would suggest that people just go to the website, www.seniorcareaccess.com, and you can simply click on the consulting tab. You'll get a ton of information about the consulting service. We offer a free 1-hour initial information gathering session, and that gives us a basis or a baseline to try to figure out what's needed, who's involved, what's going to happen, etc. And then if the potential client wants to work with us, we'll move towards developing an action plan. And then they can either work out that action plan themselves, or they can continue working with us, and we would assist them in launching the actual action plan. Okay. Now there is a fee for that. Unfortunately, we're not a charitable association or organization, but we have kept the pricing more than reasonable, and the client is always in control of what that looks like. Right. So the easiest thing for you to do is go to the website, get in contact with us. There's lots of ways to do so. There's a referral form, the phone number, the email, everything is there. And then we'll follow up with you and just start a conversation. That's the easiest thing to do is let's just have a conversation to find out where things are.
Right. So thank you. So the database is part consulting, which is what you just discussed, to assess the need of the parent or the senior, what would be best. And then you have the resource directory. The resource directory is all of these home care.
Senior services, services targeted,
coast to coast that one can access. Now, how does one access that, Esther? So let's say I have a relative in Vancouver and they don't know what to do and they're asking me, what do they do?
So there's two things. So one is if you need straight resources, that resource directory is free for consumers. They would just click on the link, and we have it on the homepage. We have 3 distinct links. You just click on the resource data set. You would search by province and then by city. And then all the resources that we have in that city will come up. You can always go back and search by another city if there's a city close by to you and you want to see what else is there. If you're looking for housing, you have 2 choices. One is there is a free data set that homes pay to be part of. That's also divided by city, by province and city. So our whole site works that way. Province and city is the funnel. And so you can go and look there, and many of those homes they all have some photos. Some of them have videos. Some of them will have a virtual tour. So that's sort of a really user-friendly senior focus kind of part of the site for housing. The alternative is to look at our membership data set. And you would have to pay a small fee to get a membership to be able to access the full database of all the housing options. Mm-hmm. The only proviso with that is you need to know levels of care in order to properly do that. Mm-hmm. So you may need to do it with a professional, and hence our consultants can help with that. Yeah. But most people don't know the difference between retirement and long-term care, or assisted living and long-term care, or even, why is a senior's apartment different from a retirement home? There's many nuances to senior care and senior housing that a lot of the general public don't know. So that's why the whole idea of going first through our consulting might be the best solution. It may save time. Yeah.
That makes sense. So how are you getting the word out there? I mean, you've been working on this for a number of years. It's growing and improving. Word of mouth, Paul, you're shouting
just yelling.
No, you must be just dealing with a wide audience, with the population growing, with issues happening with families of all ages, certainly having elderly parents and relatives. So how is the word of mouth plus the media, social media, what are you doing, Paul, to get this out there so people know what to do when they're in a situation?
Yeah. So for the first while when we were developing the site, it was a matter of the chicken and the egg. Do we let everybody know that we have this, but we don't have everything in place? Or do we get everything in place and then let everybody know? Yeah. So we decided to get most of it in place. And now we're starting to let everybody know. So we do different podcasts. We do video interviews like what we're doing right now. We do online marketing. But I would say the strength is dealing with professionals. So we have a team that is doing outreach to professional services. Excuse me. Those services have an opportunity to either market on our site or just understand what it is that we offer, because we firmly believe that Canadian families don't know what to do right off the bat. They're going to end up with a professional first, somewhere along that line. So if we can get to a professional, let them know that we're here, and when that professional can then refer that client to us, we would be able to perform better in delivering a service for that client.
Yeah, no, it's a great service that is so valuable to families. So what is the one thing people are most confused about when it comes to senior housing? Esther, what do you think?
I think most people don't know the difference between the levels of care. I spend a lot of time doing lectures and presentations on the difference. What's the difference? Retirement, long-term care, apartments. I actually even teach a course at Seneca on what are retirement homes, because people get confused by the terminology. They just don't know.
So rather than keep it general, can you in a few moments just define what are some of the slight variations between some of the major housing choices that are out there, Esther?
So senior apartments are for independent seniors, no help coming in, no nothing. Mm-hmm. It's just like an apartment building filled with seniors. A retirement home provides some care, minimal to a lot of care, but you pay for it, and it's all private for profit. There's no government support involved in it, unless, the only thing is you can get help coming in from the local health integration network, but it's limited. Mm-hmm. But basically, you have people ranging from independent to needing a bit of care. They get their meals, they may get housekeeping, they may get medication assistance, they may get help with bathing, social programs. Long-term care is very different. It used to be called nursing homes. The government is involved. The user pays a co-payment, which is basically room and board. The government pays the care portion. They're legislated by the ministry. They are inspected by the ministry. The level of care is quite high. So you can have, most people have a fair bit of physical and or mental need.
Just hearing you now, it is quite complex.
Yeah.
And extremely complex for somebody to figure this out or navigate this alone or with a family. So I think what you're saying is the first step is to assess, to see the situation, and to go into seniorcareaccess.com to contact your consulting services to speak to. And I've seen on your website a lot of wonderful people coast to coast on there. And one of them then will help, or what is the entry level call? Like, let's say I call, or I don't know if it's by phone or if it's by email. And how do I know which consultant is best for me, for my family or someone's family to go forward with a decision, Paul?
So typically the call or email will come into either Esther or myself. We will then field that. Sometimes we will, if there's information that's been given to us, we'll be able to direct that to what we would think is a right fit for a consultant, or that consultant being in a certain area.
Right.
And then the second piece would be we would review any of that information moving forward with the consultant, because there's a lot of information that needs to be looked at. We're all about what's next. Whether you're thinking about placement into a retirement home or in some sort of senior housing option. Mm-hmm. The biggest thing for me is, what does the continuum of care look like? Mm-hmm. What is going to happen next and next and next? Mm-hmm. But we've done a lot of emphasis today on care. We're also talking about everything related to, Vivien, when your mother calls you and says, okay, something's happened. Mm-hmm. Think for a moment, what's next? And then what's next? And then what's next? What do we do with the house? What do we do with the finances?
Yes.
Is she going somewhere? Is there home care coming in? Mm-hmm. Do we have to notify family? Is there one sibling over the other that's going to do a certain amount of whatever's happening?
Right. The picture is wider. It's a lot wider. You're absolutely right.
Right. So a lot of people get stuck with the immediate, oh my gosh, this is happening, we have to do this. But we're all about what's next. So, I mean, it's terrible to have to put somebody or place somebody in a retirement setting, only to find out 3 months later the circumstances that they went in for have now got more complicated, and that property can no longer care for that individual. Now you're dealing with another move. That's stressful for everybody, right? So there's a lot of little pieces that happens. And, you know, you're a master ASA. I'm a master ASA. The training that we have in working with seniors specifically to real estate is quite complex compared to a typical realtor. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the job's going to get done, but the question is, what's next and how do you manage all those parts?
There's no question. I mean, the training that one gets, as I have gone through the training with you as one of only 30 or so across Canada to help with the transition and the emotional process, that's huge, that you outline, together with the house, together with the transaction, together with selling, together what to do with one's parent so that they're in the right place. And the family dynamic is a huge piece of the puzzle. It's true. So we have just a few minutes left, and I'd like each of you to summarize one thing I'm going to ask you, the emotions involved. Is there a place for emotions in this, in your experience in dealing with families? Esther, just in a short answer, it's not just all business, it's also emotion.
No, and that's why our consultants are all from different backgrounds with all kinds of experience, vast experience. So much happens through this whole process. It's never easy. Yeah. And our hope is that we can hold people's hands through all of the emotional ups and downs.
Mm-hmm. And Paul, any last words on that?
I think that's a fantastic question. It's all about emotion. That's why we're here. That's why people might be interested in what we're doing. Everybody is going to go through this. For us, to sum that up, it's really, this is transitional for us. What we offer is a transitional service, not just a transactional service. So even though there might be a contract and there's payment, I mean, we have to get paid for the services that we offer, but it goes beyond that. It's not like you're buying a product and then you're moving on. The emotions is what driving everybody's decisions. And it's very emotional, even for us. Absolutely, it's emotional.
There's no question. There's no, when it comes to family and parents and loved ones, it all comes from that place. And I think that we all agree that what you have created and continue to create is really, really valuable. I hope we get this word out to everybody further to this, and more people will know about what you've created with seniorcareaccess.com. And I really, really thank you for your participation. And it's been really a great insight for all of us. So thank you so much.
Vivien, thank you very much for all that you do and having us on. And cheer, where is it? There it is. Cheers for coffee.
We're not going away yet, but just before we do, I want to thank you for all of this. And this ends our episode for today. And I'd like to thank you for joining me today on this show. And on the next episode of Coffee with Vivien Live, which will be on Wednesday, March the 10th, at 12 noon, we will have our next guest. Totally different topic. Marcella Barrick, who is a lead designer of interior spaces to do, again, with real estate, a different aspect of real estate this time. And it has to do with design, home decor, luxury living, small spaces, condo spaces, colors for spring 21, and the trends for spring. So that she will be my next guest. And I want to remind you that if you want to follow this series, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, or on my website, viviensharon.com/live. So please like this video, leave a comment if you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time in 2 weeks on Wednesday for the design show. Thanks so much. Bye for now, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.